Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will finally finish our search overlay. I know we've spent a lot of time on this section, but if you look back at everything we've learned while building the overlay, I think it was time well spent. Anyways, the course is not coming to a close yet, just this section on the overlay. But anyways, let's get more specific on what we need to do in this lesson. In our previous lesson, we updated our search logic to include professors based on their relationship to a program that you might have searched for. And now in this lesson, I want to do the same thing for events and campuses. Let's begin with events, because we almost set them up on accident in the previous lesson. Let me show you what I mean. So over in our text editor, within our INC folder, let's jump into searchroute.php. And if we scroll down to the very bottom of this file, and then scroll up just a tiny bit, we see that new query that we wrote in the previous lesson, program relationship query. And at the moment, it only looks for posts that are of the post type professor. So the first thing that I want to do is update this to include events. So let's delete the quotes professor, and instead let's provide an array. And then within these array parentheses, we can just say professor, comma, quote, event. Cool, so now this query will contain event posts. And now all we need to do is update the while loop that loops through the results of this query. Now within the while loop, we've already got an if block saying if the post type of a result is professor, do this. Well, now we just need to create another if block for the event post type, right? Because it makes sense for a professor to have a property named image that gets a cropped JPEG, but we need different data and different properties for an event. Well, luckily, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to write any new code because if we just scroll up a bit to the while loop that we wrote for our original query, so if you scroll up to the very top of this file, remember we have our original main query, and then right below that we've got a while loop, and we already wrote if blocks or if statements for every post type. So just scroll down until you find the if for the event post type, and then let's just go ahead and copy and paste that. So I'm going to select from the beginning of if down to the closing curly bracket that comes right after the two closing parentheses and a semicolon. So include this closing curly bracket here, and then let's go ahead and copy that. And then down towards the bottom of this file, within the while loop for our new program relationship query, maybe right above the if block for the professor post type, we can just add a new line, just paste in your clipboard. Cool. Now before we save this, I do want to scroll down to the very bottom and bring your attention to this line of code. We wrote this line of code to remove any potential duplicates in the array that we are going to return to the REST API. We did this because now that we have two queries, right, one that searches based on a keyword and a second query that searches based on a relationship, well, it's possible that a post would match both of those queries, thus creating a duplicate. So this line of code is super important. It will remove duplicates, but it's set up to only do that for the professor's subarray. And now we also want to remove duplicates from the events subarray. So I'm just going to copy and duplicate this line. So select from here to the end of the semicolon. Let's copy that, and right below it, just duplicate it, paste it. Let's change professors to events, and then right within array unique, again, let's change this mention of professors to events. Okay, and now if I save this and then jump over to the Postman app, you can see that as of 10 minutes ago, if I perform a search for biology, that results in an events array that's completely empty. But now if I refresh or send out another request with our new code in place, now within the events array, we see the science of cats. Perfect. Or to show this from another angle, if we use our search overlay, search for biology, we see the science of cats because it has a relationship to the biology program. And if we really wanted to test things to make sure everything's working properly, we could head over to our admin dashboard, And in the sidebar, click on Events. And here's that Science of Cats event that we just saw on the front end. And it shows up in our search because you can see that for related programs, it's related to both biology and math. So a search for biology will pull it up, but you could also search for math, and that will also pull up the Science of Cats as well as Math Meetup. I think I only have one other major so far on my website, named English. Not a whole lot matches that search. Looks like literally just the program. But I do know that I have an event named Poetry Day that I never set a relationship for. So I could do that right now just to test things out. So back in Events, if I click on Poetry Day, if I scroll down to the Related Events field, I'm going to click on English. It would make sense that Poetry Day is related to that. Let's go ahead and update this. And now back on the front end, I don't even need to refresh this page. If I just perform a search for English again, our JavaScript will send out a new request to the WordPress server and pull in the brand new JSON. So at this point, our events are working correctly. Now let's change gears and work on campuses. So for example, if we close this and go to the Programs page, and if I click on Math, I know that the math program is available at my Downtown West campus. However, if I perform a search for math, as of right now, our search logic is not intelligent enough to pull in Downtown West. So let's go ahead and fix that right now. I want to begin by pointing out that campuses are a bit different than events and professors. And I'm simply referring to the direction of the relationship. For example, if we think of a professor or an event post, so if I go back into the admin, here is the Poetry Day event, and the relationship to a program is flowing in the direction from this event to the program. But campuses are the opposite. To see what I mean, if we click on Campuses, and then choose Downtown West, what I'm trying to say is that this campus post doesn't contain a field where you can relate it to a program. Instead, each program post gets related to a campus. So the point here is just that you always want to be aware of which direction the relationship is flowing in. So to help us map out what type of code we need to write, let's click on Programs. And if I click on Math, I know that I've set the math program to be related to the Downtown West campus. I set up the relationship to work in this direction because I figured that you might have 50 or 100 programs, but you're probably only going to have maybe 5 or 10 campuses. So I felt that this direction made more sense and would be easier to maintain. So now, with the nature of this relationship in mind, if we jump back into our code, this is actually going to be fairly easy. Because if we scroll up to the very top, and we imagine someone comes to our website and searches for math, well, then our first main query is going to pull in the math program post, and then down just a little bit, we are going to loop through that result. And if we scroll down just a little bit more, we've already got an if block saying if the result is a program. So all we need to do is just write a little bit of new code within this existing if block. Or to explain it visually, if someone searches for math, that's obviously going to pull in the main program post of math, and within that same exact post, we've already got direct access to any campuses that it's related to. So back in our code, within this if block for program, let's just add a new line, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a variable named related campuses, and let's set it to equal get field. This is how you can retrieve the value of an advanced custom field, and the name of that field is related_campus. Now the way that I named this field way back in the course is a bit deceiving because this is singular, but it can actually contain multiple campuses, meaning this is an array. So what we need to do now is loop through this array and do something once for each related campus. So on a new line, let's just write a for each loop, parentheses, curly brackets, And actually, before we build out this for each loop, I want to wrap it within an if statement, because I only want to run this code if there are indeed related campuses to work with. Meaning I only want to run this code if this field is not empty. So right above this for each loop, we can say if, parentheses, curly brackets, and then within this if statement, I'm just going to cut and paste our for each loop to live inside the if statement. So just paste it right here. Okay, now for the condition, for the if statement, let's say if, and just the name of this variable, related campuses. As long as this is not empty, this will evaluate to true. Cool, now let's build out the for each loop. Within the parentheses, you want to begin with the array that you want to loop through, so related campuses, and then we say as, and then you can make up a variable name that will represent the current item that's been looped to. So I'm just going to say $campus. Okay, and then within the curly brackets, what do we actually want to do once for each related campus? Well, we just want to push it onto our results campuses array. Remember, this is the array that we return to the REST API down at the very bottom of this file. So for now, our goal is to just push each related campus into this specific array. So back down to that code that we were just writing. Here's our if statement and the for each loop. So within the for each, let's say array push. And remember, this takes two things. The first argument is the array that you want to add on to. So let's say results campuses. And the second argument is what you want to add on. So let's say array. And now we just want to build out an associative array that contains properties like title and permalink. So back in the code, within these array parentheses, let's drop down. And let's say that it should have a property named title. You could make up whatever property name you want, but this is what our front-end JavaScript will be looking for. And let's set this to equal get the title, comma. Let's also create a property named permalink and set that to equal get the permalink. Cool, but before we save this, we do need to add something within the parentheses for this get the title and get the permalink. Because by default, these functions will work with the current post. And as far as WordPress is concerned, within this context, WordPress would consider the current post the math program. Because that's the post that's being looped through in terms of the overall while loop that's working with the WordPress query. And we don't want to get the title and permalink for the math program. We want the title and permalink for the current related campus. Well, luckily, due to the nature of a for each loop, we can access the post object of the current campus that's being looped through with this variable, $campus. So within the parentheses for get the title, let's just say campus, and do the same thing for get the permalink, campus. Cool, now if we save this, and then back on the front end, if I perform another search for math, perfect, we see the Downtown West campus. And that's going to bring this lesson and this section on building out the search overlay to a close. We've still got a lot of good stuff to cover in the course though. User permissions and roles, open registration so anyone can sign up for a basic account. We still need to learn about the other 3 letters in CRUD when it comes to working with the REST API, because so far we've only learned about the R for read, but the real fun comes in with the C for create, the U for update, and the D for delete. So we've still got a lot of WordPress ground to cover, and the funnest parts are still yet to come. So let's keep things rolling, let's keep our momentum, and I will see you in the next lesson.